Hello, everyone. Let me introduce Mr. Ravi Kant to everyone. He's a veteran in the business world with nearly 5 decades of experience, so I can only make a humble attempt to introduce him. He spent 15 years at Tata Motors when he significantly contributed to its global expansion as CEO, managing director, and later as a vice chairman of the board. During his tenure, he had notable acquisitions such as Jaguar Land Rover UK, Tata Daewoo, and launched innovative products like Tata Nano and Tata Ace, revolutionizing the commercial vehicle market in India. He was the chairman of several companies like Tata Advanced Materials, Voltas, Jaguar Land Rover, to name a few. An alumnus of IIT Kharagpur and Aston University, Mr. Kant has received numerous awards and recognitions, including honorary degrees and distinguished alumnus awards. He's the chairman of the advisory board of Akhand Jyoti Hospital, one of the largest eye specialty hospitals in India, and is on the advisory board of Vision Foundation of India. He's also an author co-writing Leading from the Back, a book that shares his leadership insight and promotes a modern, effective management style. Please join me in welcoming him to Cambridge India Business Dialogue.
We'll start after your session.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. It's been a delightful beginning to this conference. So what I'll be sharing with you is my thoughts, not on innovation of products or innovation of systems or innovation of something else, but innovation of leadership. Because if the leadership is there, then the innovation will get hastened up. Innovation gets a different kind of trajectory. So I'll be spending a few minutes on why we need to innovate. Time has come for us to innovate leadership. If we look at leadership, there are two components in my mind which are very important. One is leadership is critical. I don't have to kind of explain this. Leadership is critical because leadership sets the culture of the company. Leadership sets the personality of the company. Leadership sets the way the company organization is going to go. And there are many things. So for example, let's take my old group, Tata Group itself. We have a byline called leadership with trust. So it evokes something, it means something. Similarly, for other organizations that may be there in the world, or if you take GE, for example, till recently, what kind of leadership it had. The second component is leadership is contextual. If the context changes, the leadership should change, like any other thing. And it does happen in companies and organizations. When they have steady growth, you have certain kind of leadership, and the leader does very well. And suddenly, if the economy tanks, or if there's a huge crisis in the company, you need a different kind of leader. So people keep changing the kind of leader that will suit the context at that point in time. But here I'm not talking about these 4-year or 5-year changes which are required for leadership. I'm talking about the next 100 years, next 150 years, what kind of leadership DNA we must be having. And that's important. So let's go back to what DNA we have today. Corporates, as we know today, are only about 200, 250 years old. They came after Industrial Revolution. Before that, people used to make products in a village or in local area and distribute products in that. Or in maybe 11th and 12th century, they would also take it to far off, but it will take months to go. We have heard of Silk Road and things like that. So at that point in time, as you know, India and China accounted for more than 50% of world trade. Then came Renaissance in Europe, starting from Italy and covering the whole of Europe. That gave an idea for people to ask questions and introduced deductive thinking. And that, I think, created, I would say, a background for the next thing to follow. And that next thing was Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th century. Industrial Revolution 1, Industrial Revolution 2. That changed everything. Because it changed everything because you could manufacture at one place hundreds and thousands of things. And then, second thing is logistics. It changed the logistics. You could take it forward to another place where it would take months, you could do it in a week, so it could do it days, you could do it in hours. So what it did was, it did a very major thing which we don't realize, it separated the place of production from place of consumption. That was huge, big change. Place of production from place of consumption. That means I could produce here and I could immediately send it off to place of consumption. And that made things very, very complicated. Very, very complicated. Therefore, it required creation of organizations, and it required creation of many of the things to have order, because it created chaos, and therefore you needed to have organizations, you needed to have leaders of that kind. So what options at that point in time industry had? At that point in time, I would say they had three examples in front of them. One was military, political, and religion. And as you know, Catholic Church was very good organization, very well done, but they had a kind of fuzzy thing. They did not have something to aim for in this specific time, specific this. So it was, in a way, in my view, it was not taken. Political was very much linked with the military. So military was the key one, very hierarchical. Everything was the clarity of purpose. Everything was, people knew what their role was. People knew what the targets were. People knew what to do. We had to win the war, period. We had to win a territory in so much time, period. So they were very specific targets. And military, till that point in time, was leading from the front. If you go back 2,500 years ago, Alexander the Great, as we all know, the context was what at that point in time? Context was, they had swords, which you could hold in your hands. You had javelin, you could throw so much, and you had horses. So in this kind of thing, leading from the front was a natural corollary or need or requirement of that context. And therefore, and why Alexander was good? Because he was able to show to people, to his troops, that what a great warrior he is and what an intelligent warrior he was. He was both brave and intelligent. As you know, his guru was Aristotle, and he learned many things from him. And he, of course, became king, and at the age of 30, he created the largest transcontinental empire. So he was, I would say, the one with, you can say, leading from the front. Then if you come down, whether it is the Roman Empire, Julius Caesar, or even later on people, it was the norm. Industrial Revolution started changing things. It started changing because then the tanks came, you could throw things much further, you didn't have to be right in the front. And today, if you look at Ukraine war and things like that, the people who are conducting the war, they are not at the forefront. They are sitting in Moscow or Kyiv or Washington or wherever they are. So in a way, military has already gone to a hybrid kind of thing, I would say, not leading from the front, but kind of a hybrid thing, which I'll come to later. So, whereas corporates have continued to choose that model and have continued to do it. And what happened was, because resistance happened in this part of the world, Industrial Revolution happened in this part of the world, as you know, in UK, starting from UK and then spread to Europe and the USA. And later on, after World War, US became a very major power. They determined what kind of leadership it should be, and that was leading from the front. That means leading from the front was very hierarchical organizations. There was one person at the top, know all kind of guy. And as we know, what kind of personalities generally is associated with leading front kind of persons. And it worked very well because that was the need. It worked very well, as you know, in whether it's in the US or Europe or even other countries. And they gained huge market share as far as trade is concerned. So India's and China's share in the trade came down from 50-55% to maybe 10-12%. And now, of course, we are now started recovering. But what has happened? The four challenges which have come, two external and two internal. So what are the internal challenges? One is a machine, the other is money. Machines, what has happened? Is in our anxiety to become better and faster and more, we have made people into machines. We have made men into machines. And everything is required for that. Everything is required for that. As you know, it's like a treadmill. People are moving on that. People are moving. A time will come when things will begin to collapse. And I think the time has come now. Because a lot of people, especially in the mid-level careers, they are beginning to wonder, what am I doing here? What should I be doing here? Why am I spending so much time just thinking and talking and doing things for the company? And I don't have any time for my family. I don't have any. Is this the purpose of my life? So, 20 years ago, we didn't ask these questions. 30 years ago, we didn't ask these questions. 50 years ago, we didn't ask this question. Because at that point in time, somehow getting security, somehow having a fairly good standard of life was a very badly felt need, and therefore we went ahead with that. But now people have that kind of thing. So people are asking, why am I here? And therefore you'll see in papers and everywhere, there are a lot of mental illnesses coming, people are withdrawing, there are withdrawal symptoms happening. And therefore we need to think again whether we have gone too far or whether we need to move back. So I think this is one thing which is there. Other is on money. I think money has become the predominant theme in business. Increasing shareholder value is the only thing. And I think it has made huge detriment to other stakeholders. What are the other stakeholders? People in the company. People around the company, like suppliers and other people. People in the society. At what cost? At what cost? That is gone. And the kind of inequalities it has thrown up. Somebody getting billions and billions of dollars, somebody not getting the poor people. And therefore, we need to start asking questions. Have we gone too far? Do we need to withdraw? Do we need to pause? So, machine and money. As far as internal thing is concerned, again, external thing is concerned, again, two M's, mega trends. What are the mega trends? These mega trends have created tremendous complexity. What is the complexity? Number one is uncertainty and unpredictability. If 20 years ago I could say that I will reach there in 5 years' time, today I can't do that. Today I can't even say whether I'll be in 2 years' time. Things are changing so fast. I mean, who predicted Gaza war will happen? Who predicted Ukraine war will happen? Who predicted tsunami will happen? Who predicted COVID will happen? Who predicted nuclear disaster in Japan will happen? Nobody predicted. But they all have great impact on businesses, I can tell you that. A simple thing of, say, nuclear disaster in Japan a few years ago. That time I had some connection with Jaguar Land Rover. So we looked at things and said, okay, let's look if there's some supplier around it. And we found there was no supplier. But 4 weeks later, we found we had a problem in painting. So what was that? They started going deep down into it. We found the third-tier supplier. There was only one supplier in the world who was controlling 70% of the market. There was an additive in paint. And that person was located there. So what I'm trying to say is because the supply chains have become so complex and complicated, any disruption anywhere creates a lot of problem. So uncertainty and unpredictability. Number 2 is tsunami of data. If you look at, the kind of information overload is coming. It is impossible for one person to be really having knowledge of everything. Professor Ray Kurzweil, you may have heard of him. He's from MIT and he's senior advisor to Google. So he said many years ago that the rate of progress doubles every decade, which means a century of progress, please listen to it carefully, a century of progress can be condensed in a month at today's rate of progress. Tomorrow, he said that a few years ago, tomorrow it can be done in a week, day after tomorrow it will be done. With all the AI we are talking about, all that chat GPT we are talking about, you don't know what's going to happen. So all this is making whole thing extremely complex. These mega trends are making things very complex. So for whether it is for say, uncertainty and unpredictability. So you need organizations which are responsive, which can react fast, we can anticipate and react fast. You cannot have a hierarchical organization. You cannot have a leader here at the top. And for the second one, for example, I'm talking about information and all that, you need to have distributed leadership. You cannot have one guy looking at and deciding everything. You cannot have information going up and orders coming down. You can't have that. You need to have distributed leadership. And therefore, the leading from the front type of leadership, which is prominently of this kind of variety, in my view, is getting broken. Is getting broken and is in the need of replacement. And therefore, what is it we should be looking at? Second point of external is millennials. Many people like you. Why? Somehow in our generation, we tolerated many things. We had a lot of patience. As we were still trying to grow up, still trying to look for those things. But today's millennials have everything. They are not concerned about that. If you ask them what kind of leadership they would like to be working under, and I can tell you in last 90 days, I've been to nearly 30 universities in India and UAE, and now I'm coming here in the UK. There's unequivocal answer. We would never like to work in this kind of leadership where the leader is egoistic, leader is bombastic, leader is saying my way or highway kind of leader, not invented here kind of organization. We don't want to work in that kind of organization. So millennials have to change. And when I asked them, so what are you going to do about it? Because your whole life is there. So they said, we don't know. I said, look, this is so established leading from the front. Because if you don't demolish it, you'll have to inherit it. And it will be difficult for you to live your lives. So you need to rise. You need to do the occasion. Of course, you need to have some enlightened people at the top to be able to support you, to be able to encourage you. So somehow the system has to undergo a change. The second point is that we were so clued up, so busy in trying to execute things and trying to do things, we forgot about many other things. We forgot about caring for our human beings. We forgot about caring for the planet. We forgot about these kind of things. We forgot about our families. And I think time has come when these things have to come back to the center stage. And millennials are very clear that they want to make sure that leave behind their next generations fit for living in this planet. They care. They care about people, they care about animals, they care about plants, they care about this thing. And everywhere you go and find that there is a huge sense of resurgence as far as that group is concerned. And therefore, we need to have we need to look at different kind of leadership. For want of better words, I'm calling this leading from the back. Just to see that it is not leading from the front, it is leading from the back. And therefore, I put down my thoughts in a book, which is there at the time of registration. Those who have taken, those who have not taken can have a copy. So it is not about what I've done. That's a separate thing. We can discuss that in the question answer session. But it is about what we need to do. What we need to do, the innovation. And we need to decide whether India should shape the global future with innovation and leadership, as the West has shown, has shaped the future of the global ship till for 200 years. What should happen in the next 100 years? What should happen in the next 150 years? So I've distilled my 50 years of experience in corporate life and 10 years in kind of social sector into 3 simple messages. What are those messages? Number 1 is how to be myself. There are 3 things, and each has got 3 things. Number 1 is have an open mind. And whatever I'm going to say are simple things, but I can tell you very difficult to execute. Have an open mind. It starts from there. Most of the time, as you know, the more successful you are, the more close-minded you become. It is very, very, everybody thinks he or she has an open mind. Till you ask somebody else who's dealt with you to tell you about whether this person has an open mind, and you'll get the answer. So having an open mind, what is having an open mind? Open your windows, be open to changes which are taking place, be appreciative of things, be looking at other people's points of views, using other points of views to incorporate and make the decision making richer. So have an open mind. Number 2 is take ownership. Irrespective of the fact you are not a financial owner of a company or an organization, you must assume as if you are the owner. I think that's important. Because when you start thinking that, it's a different perspective. It's a different perspective. When I left Titan Watches, came to LML Vespa, it was in doldrums. It was in doldrums. It was making huge losses. And the company was going to be folded up. Of course, people ask me, why the hell you joined the company? But that's another question. So we told ourselves that we have got 20,000 responsibility for 20,000 people. So somebody asked, why 20,000? We have only 5,000. But what about the family? So 20,000 people. So can we take the ownership for these 20,000 people and ensure that the company does not go down under? And I tell you, it made a huge difference. So everybody was not talking about what I should be doing, what in terms of promotion, what in terms of this thing, but how can we save the company? It required a different kind of perspective. So sense of ownership is second thing. Third is, while you have sense of ownership, third is be detached. You are not doing it because you want your promotion. You're not doing it because you want to become a millionaire. Incidentally, you might become, but that's not the purpose. You are detached from this kind of thing. Because what happens generally in life is, when something happens good, you begin to ascribe all the goodness happened because of you. You start jumping with joy, start getting accelerated kind of enjoyment. But I mean, not understanding it was only partly due to you at all, and mainly due to so many other factors, including your colleagues and teams and things like that, and an external environment which was favorable to you. Or when things go badly, you begin to see that. So have a sense of detachment. Whatever you do, I'm not saying you should not strive for it, but have a because that gives an equanimity. And you are able to deal with both success and failures in a different kind of way. The second thing is how to deal with the team. Again, 3 things. Build trust. Number 1, collaborate. Number 2, and number 3, leverage strengths. Build trust, again, very simple. Everybody thinks that people should trust me. But when it comes to trusting others, we don't trust. I've been in 7 companies, each in different industry, and I've gone alone. Normally what happens in corporate world, that you go along with your coterie of people into the next company because you think, okay, these are your reliable, confident people of confidence. But I've gone alone. Why did I go alone? I went alone because had I come with my coterie of people, I'm giving a signal to the organization that I don't trust you. I don't trust you. So you start by, when people ask questions, should you start by trusting people or people should trust you? Absolutely clear. You have to start by trusting people. But don't expect that the trust will be reciprocated in equal measure immediately. You need to have patience. Some people will reciprocate trust in 3 months' time, some in 6 months, so it may take a year and a half, 2 years. Some people will not trust you at all. So it takes a lot of patience, it takes a lot of working to do. Because by saying people will not trust you, it is through your behavior. You need to be transparent, you need to have show fairness, you need to have equity, You need to look at people's problems. You need to be conscious of that. And therefore, if you do that, over a period of time, people begin to say, even if the decision is not in there, people begin to say, I can trust this guy because he will do exactly that, what he's doing to me, for somebody else also. That means what I call is consistent integrity. Integrity which is consistent. Because you can be honest once, but that's not, people will trust you. That honesty, that integrity should be part of your DNA. It's not something this is force. Your behavior becomes that. And then when you do that, and coming back to this, the Tata's byline is leadership with trust. Why Tata is respected for 150 years? One simple reason, because people trust. And trust gets built, it takes long time to build, but it takes 1 minute to shatter it. I mean, I can talk on trust for 2 hours. Whether if trust, how to build trust, what happens if the trust gets broken, can you rebuild it again? Can you value trust? There are a whole lot of things in that. So trust is one. Number 2 is collaborate. I don't think I need to speak more to this group about collaboration. In today's world, you can't do anything unless you collaborate. You can't achieve anything unless you collaborate. And some of the speakers earlier have talked about collaboration. Number 3 is leverage strengths. Again, this is very important. We tend to look at people's weaknesses and we say, okay, this fellow is this fellow is this fellow is wrong, that is wrong, this is wrong. But I feel very strongly that we need to identify people's strengths, because as people may have weaknesses, they have also strengths. Each person has strengths. How can you identify a strength of a person and then put them in a collaborative manner, in an environment of trust? I can tell you, you make for a very, very powerful organization. Very powerful organization. The strength of which cannot be estimated either by you or by the people themselves. And they go on to do extraordinary things. Sometimes people say, okay, I've given this thing. Why the results are not the same? Why the results are not the same? Because of this. But if you have built this kind of team, then I can tell you, you get extraordinary results, making things 10 times in 10 months, or in Tata Motors, growing by 25 times in 15 years, or innovation like Nano, or creating another huge, equally big market like in small commercial vehicle like Ace, or going and doing bold things like taking over commercial vehicles in Korea or Jaguar Land over here. So it gives you that kind of thing that if you have leveraged people's strength, put them in a collaborative manner, in an environment of trust, you can achieve impossible things. Third is how to deal with the task, because ultimately we are here to deliver a task. Again, there are 3 things. Aim high. Understand where the limit is. Don't project your past into future. See what the future is, what the opportunities are, and have a fresh look, and you'll come with a very different answer, I can tell you that. So you're not talking about increments of 5%, 2%, you're talking about multiples of 5% and 10%, 10 times, if you look at the opportunities. And once you have understood what the opportunity is, then second is work outside in. Don't start from here, start from there. And then when you come down, then you'll find that you have not reached. That's the time when innovation happens, because you cannot leave the target. And then when you say how to do it, go back. That's where you have to start thinking out of the box. That's where innovation begins to come. And huge amounts of innovation will come once you have wedded yourself to that kind of philosophy. And the third and last part in this is be tough softly. As far as the performance is concerned, you have to be absolutely tough. But as far as human beings are concerned, you've got to treat them softly. So in other words, I would say, be tough with people, but don't be rough with people. And that's a philosophy will go a long way. in accomplishing. So this is all this is. So this is, I'm not saying too much about it. It's there in the book. The book is in a story form. It's not an academician's book. It's not a consultant's book. It's a story of a middle-level manager and how he is very successful doing certain kind of style of leadership and then suddenly finds that he's begun to fail and what he should be doing. And through a number of coaches and all, the story is being told. As leveraging his strengths, just coming to that, as I'm not a writer, through my experience, I've given the framework, I've given this thing. So I found two fantastic parable writers in the US. One wrote Fish, which sold more than 6 million copies, and the other is also Harry Paul and Ross Reck. So we combined together while COVID was going on. We never met each other, through Zoom calls and emails, and we created this book. The book is, as a story, it's a simple, it's only paperback, very low price, cover price, so that you should not think twice before buying it. But I'm not selling the book. I have come here to tell you about the philosophy of why we should be relooking at the type of leadership we had and what kind of new leadership we should be having. So I hope I've given a different perspective to this kind of view here, shaping the global future with Indian innovation, and that innovation is in leadership. Of course, it goes without saying that it has to be supported by other things like organizations and processes and products and things like that. So thank you very much. If there are any questions, I'll be pleased to answer.
Please take a seat. I'll ask a couple of questions.
Wow, what an address. Thank you so much for sharing the insights. In fact, you have covered most of the questions that I've written regarding the leadership and innovation. So let me just ask one quick question before I open it to the audience, is about your experience. So innovation and disruption, about the theme. Can you share an example of a major innovation or a disruptive change that you have overseen, and what lessons you learned from that experience?
Well, there are many. I mean, in product innovation, I would say I'll take nano.
Yeah.
You know, we used to participate in Geneva Motor Show, and a long time ago, when somebody asked Mr. Tata said, I want to bring that car. So somebody said, what? Define the car. Say, define the car. Then somebody asked, some journalist asked him, what should be the price of the car? So he said, somewhere between this, which came to about 1 lakh. Now, this is in year 1. The car comes out in year 7. Two things have happened meanwhile. Number 1 is commodity prices have shot up. And number 2, the whole idea of car has changed. Earlier it was a kind of a rural road vehicle, and it became a full-fledged vehicle. With a lot of space, meeting to all the safety requirements, all of the requirements. And therefore, it became extremely difficult to control that. So what did we do? It was impossible to produce that. So we took a white sheet of paper and we said, okay, if this is going to be 100,000 rupees, so what is bill of materials will be 70% of that. So bill of materials is. So can I look at imaginary car? Therefore, the wheel should cost so much, the battery should cost so much, the sheet metal should cost so much, and blah, blah, blah. So now we went back and started looking at how can I produce in that price. That's when innovation came. I can tell you people, I mean, it's amazing. It's quite amazing. What kind of solutions people came with, what kind of solutions our suppliers came with. Big suppliers, multinational companies, Bosches and Siemens of the world, they said, no, it's not possible. But then we were made to do it and do it and do it and do it. We found the solution. Steel price, a Japanese steel supplier. We made such a deal that he was willing to sell at 30% of the price for the first 100,000. So whether it was commercial, whether it was logistics, whether it was product, whether it was design, we did not leave anything. At that point in time, I never used to bother about, although I was a CEO, never used to bother about purchases. But for Nano, not a rupee could be increased without my signature. And twice we said we are going to dump the project because it's not meeting our requirements. Again innovation. Again going back to the drawing board. Again innovation. Again. So one thing I can tell you, there is no limit to human ingenuity. That is one thing I've learned in life. There's no limit to human ingenuity. Only you need to create challenges yourself and make it happen. So this is one. In manufacturing, again, Nano, I'll say, nowhere in the world, in any industry, it has happened. We had created a whole new factory in West Bengal. Trial production was going on, and something happened. We decided to pull out. Now, three things are happening. We decided to pull out. Mr. Tata has promised that we will deliver the car. So on one side, we are dismantling the machines nut by nut, bolt by bolt, packing it in containers, 1,300 containers, taking it 1,300 kilometers across the country. On the other side, we are building the factory simultaneously. On the third side, we had just built a plant in Uttarakhand for the small vehicle, commercial vehicle ACE. Now, production of commercial vehicle is very different from production of cars. But we modified a part of that to produce cars, at least small numbers. I don't think it has ever happened in the world. We don't talk about it. But I think it's the true genius of people in Tata Motors that they delivered, not only delivered the product, but they produced the product in this kind of circumstances that we did. So it was innovation in manufacturing, it was innovation in product.
In fact, the story of Nano has been so inspiring that it's always comes up whenever we talk about innovation. And I have like many follow-up questions, but I'll still open it to the audience for perhaps one or two quick questions, and then we will close this session. Manu here.
Thank you, Ujjwal. Firstly, thank you so much, sir, for such a wonderful and insightful session, and your perspective on the leadership, especially when you talked about that leadership is contextual based. You also talked about military, and I could somewhat relate to it because I have served in the military, so leading from the front, this aspect I could definitely relate to. My question is, you have talked about these eras going on, the industrial revolution, renaissance, and the leadership had emerged in these times. How do you think, what are your thoughts, like in this scenario where AI is evolving at such a fast pace? What do you think how the leadership is going to shape when this kind of technology is available to almost everyone, all stakeholders? So how do you think the leadership is going to shape in this scenario?
Well, one thing I know that no all leader will not do. That's definitely no. So we need to look at something else. We need to look at distributed leadership. We need to look at people who are experts in many things. We need to have a collaborative approach. We need to, unless we do that, we will not be able to look at the diversity of challenges that we are going to be having. It's impossible. And that is why the leader is not the one who's leading, but the leader becomes the facilitator. Leader is the one who makes leaders. He becomes the facilitator. His role changes. He's changing dramatically. But from one who's giving orders, the one who's the boss, he's no more the boss. But he becomes facilitator. He puts other people in the front. He makes other people take responsibility. It's not that at the end of the day he carries the can, please understand. At the end of the day he carries the can. But he's created so much of trust and so much of this thing that the organization kind of works by itself and is not dependent on only one person.
So we'll take one more question. Nadia here.
Sir, thank you so much for your intervention. I've had the privilege of working with Tata for many years, and I think the ethics of the organization are something also to be really commended for. But I wondered if you had some advice for the students as to the type of frugal innovation that you led when the organization is a startup and has no budget. And how do you still introduce those kinds of try once, try second, try third when you're very budget constrained?
I think you should talk to somebody on the same bench here. Jaideep is there, who's the master of frugal innovation. So you should talk to him.
But we learn from you.
One of the things, yeah. Yeah. I think there is a lot on what they say. I mean, sometimes people think in a negative manner. It's jugaad, that the Indian word called jugaad, Hindi word called jugaad. It's not that. Your ability to do things at a fraction of a price. Dr. Hamid talked about medicines. Same thing is true in all fields. Whether it is engineering, whether it is this, whether it is that, you are able to do things in a fraction of this thing. I mean, I know there was a discussion on healthcare. I'm associated also with gene therapy. Gene therapy, as you know, is cure for cancer. It costs $1 million to $2 million, or even sometimes $3 million per patient. So even in the US, people cannot afford it. So a group of Harvard Medical School professors and ex-professors and Novartis ex-leadership have come together in Boston. They have formed this group. And they want to bring the cost to 1/10. Because they feel, no, it's ridiculous that this cure has come, but it's going to be limited to only to fraction of humanity. It should go down. They have come with that kind of thing. So people have left their jobs. People are doing this for a long time. And they have now formed this company. One of the levers is to have global center of manufacturing in a low-cost country. In this case, they've chosen India. And in Noida, the factory is coming up, and in 3 months' time, it start production. And in Boston also. So what one is saying is, it's not necessary that if somebody has said this is the price, that is the cost. No, you can make dramatic differences to it. And I think that's where the strength of the country is. That's where the strength of the India is. And I think Dr. Hamid also talked about in healthcare. Similarly, in every other thing, it can be done. And I think I agree with him that Cambridge should play an active part in that. In fact, last evening, at dinner time, I was talking to him. You have these conferences, that's very good. But what is the action point? You must put some kind of action points. An action point is not for your term. Action point is for a longer term. Okay, these are 3 things that you are going to be doing. And then you follow this up, and what's going to happen. That's where you begin to see what kind of impact you want to have.
So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Ravi. Dr. Hamid, you had a question?
No. Leadership, I stand corrected, requires a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, sure.
You should talk about a little flexibility.
Okay. So when you have a hierarchical organization, it's a rigid organization. Although there's clarity of roles and all that, but it's very rigid. It can't react fast. And today's uncertain change and uncertain this thing, you need to have a very, very flexible organization. You should be able to anticipate, but you should know that you can't anticipate everything. And therefore, you should be able to react very fast. And therefore, you need to have very flexible organization which can adapt itself to changes which are happening in the environment and changes which are required to be made within the organization itself. And that's the tougher part, I can tell you that, the changes which are required to be done within the organization. So flexibility is the key word. If you are rigid, you're gone. In fact, there are many books I can talk about. Let's take, for example, you people are in MBA. There's a book called Reinventing Organizations. Have you heard of it? No, surprising. Reinventing organizations. LALOU. LALOUX. Fantastic. Thinking, we are now talking about experiments are being done where people are doing their own things. In Netherlands, the healthcare thing is hopeless, as everywhere else, as in this country. Nurses have come together, groups of nurses have come together, they take the responsibility, they are looking at the patient. It's not that every second day a nurse is changing for that patient. Same patient, the same nurse is there. She's spending time with the patient. She's having coffee she's talking about his family. She's talking about his aspirations. And it has changed the whole nursing scenario in Netherlands. Starting with a group of 7-8 nurses, I think we have, I don't forget, they have 8,000, 10,000 nurses now. Because everybody is fed up with that kind of thing. Everybody is saying, oh my God, I have to do this, and I've been asked to do this, and I have to ask to this. They are fed up. They say, no, I don't want to be part of that organization. That's what I was talking about. I want out. But they don't have an option. So if you give an option, I can tell you people will leave in droves. People will leave because people are fed up with the kind of environment, the kind of leadership, the kind of organizations we are in. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we are out of time. So thank you so much, Mr. Kant, for taking the time out and speaking with us. Thanks a lot for participating in this dialogue.